Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. It is still Women's History Month. We are still celebrating. It's the last Tuesday in the month of March, and we are here today with another episode of From the Ground Up, real time issues with real time solutions for MWBEs and small businesses, brought to you by Queen Strategy Partners, Nicole Valentine Esquire, Danielle Douglas, and myself, Dr. Stacey N.C. Grant. We thank you so much for tuning in, being a part of the show, letting us know that the content that we bring you has been transformational while we've been living through these interesting times, going into a new season. It's our anniversary. Like, we started this in the midst of what we saw going on, and we are still here. But it's always my pleasure to remind you, one, we're here the first and third Tuesdays of the month. We made a shift in the end of 2020, and we are looking forward to even enhancing some of the programming that we're bringing you so that you can continue to go from the ground up all the way to the horizons that you have never even dreamed of. But you know, my favorite part of the show, introducing my co-host, my sister, my friend, the beautiful and the talented Danielle Douglas. Hey, Danielle, good morning.
Hey, Miss Dr. Stacey N.C. Grant. I am so excited about this show. Stacey and I are always trying to think of good topics that we think is going to be of value to you. And we thought, you know what? It's the last day of Women's History Month. How can we not celebrate the boss ladies that are doing things, that are movers and shakers and making things happen on so many different levels? And so we felt it was so important to celebrate just three of these fabulous women that are movers and shakers and making things happen. So we are excited about today's show. We get to have a lot of fun and just, shoot the breeze with these fabulous ladies. And we just want to, have you take the ride with us. So with that said, I'm going to pass it back over to my co-host, Miss Dr. Stacey N.C. Grant.
Thank you so much, Danielle. We have way too much fun doing From the Ground Up, but we're so excited. Like she said, it's Women's History Month. First of all, every day is a day to celebrate women, but we're celebrating three amazing business owners today. The first one that I'm going to introduce is the beautiful Diana Rose. She's a social entrepreneur, a sustainability lecturer, and community cultivator. Don't you just love that? She's the CEO of Jars of Delight, the zero waste catering company that creates beautiful handcrafted Caribbean fusion. Yes, let me get this right. Caribbean fusion cuisine in mason jars. I still
Yes.
have a few. I might return it, Diane. I don't know.
Oh,
I
yeah,
love the mason jars.
just a few.
Based out of Queens, Jars of Delight has provided innovative catering to over 4,000 guests across the New York metropolitan area. She's also the founder and executive director of the Laurelton Farmers Market, LFM, which launched in the height of the 2020 pandemic. This project was a direct response to both the health disparities and lack of access to farm fresh produce within Black, Indigenous communities of color, which exacerbated the number of deaths in COVID-19. That's just a small glimpse, but those are two of the things that she's known for. She has some passion projects. You'll hear about that later. But welcome, Diana. We're so great to have you here today. And then Danielle Douglas is going to introduce our next guest.
So I would like to introduce Miss Tanya Simmons Reed. Okay. I have to just say, Miss Reed has been such a blessing in my life. And I just want to acknowledge that to all the folks who are listening. I mean, she's become one of my ride or dies in a short period of time. We are sister friends, and she is stuck with me for life. So you know that, Miss Tanya Reed, right? You know that, right? So with that said, Tanya Simmons Reed is the president and CEO of Skyrocket Communications, Inc. With over 3 decades of combined experience in communications, marketing, community engagement, sales strategy, business development, fundraising, and event management experience, she birthed Skyrocket Communications in 2018 to help organizations rise brilliantly to effectively serve the common good. Tanya is a graduate of North Carolina A&T State University. She is a certified nonprofit consultant who is a member of the National Association of Nonprofit Organizations and Executives, and currently serves as the president of the New Jersey Alumni Chapter of North Carolina A&T State University. Additionally, Tanya serves on the board of directors for Queen and You, a nonprofit organization that trains young women and girls in the areas of professional development, self-esteem, etiquette, scholarship, and service, and the Media Communications Committee for the Senior Law Center, a nonprofit organization protecting the rights of older Pennsylvanians. And she is married and has 4 children. So thank you, Miss Tanya Simmons Reed, for being here with us.
Thank
and
you.
Now I'll pass it back over to Miss Dr. Stacey C. Grant to introduce our, guest, Miss Natasha.
Absolutely. As you can see, we have some great women here today. My Natasha is a well-respected political, community, and diversity strategist who works tirelessly for communities across the country. In 2014, she was appointed the executive director of the New York State Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian Legislative Caucus. It's a long caucus name. But basically, she was running the caucus as one of the largest and most influential political entities in the state of New York. As the executive director, Natasha demonstrated the intellectual rigor required to ensure that New York State's legislative designs are inclusive policies and regulations that are aimed at bettering the lives and well-being of people of color and low-income communities across the state, which is huge. And you know how the disparities roll in all of our communities, but she knows what it is here in the state of New York. Her fight for human rights, racial justice, political righteousness led her to organize one of the largest demonstrations in American history, the Women's March on Washington, as a national organizer in 2017. She now serves as the project manager for the Minority Women Business Enterprise Compliance for the JFK Redevelopment Program here in Queens, New York, and she's a candidate for District 27 New York City Council. So let's give a round of applause to all of our beautiful and talented ladies that are joining us here today. So we're going to get into the show. We're celebrating the power of women, and Danielle has some questions to kick off our discussion because all of you have survived 2020. Can we give another round of applause for that? So over to you, Danielle, as we get into the questions today.
So I'm going to start with you, Diana. And the first question is, 2020 was the year of the pivot. How did you pivot?
Oh boy, that is such a real statement. So, in many ways, but business-wise, as a caterer, especially one that specializes in large catering events, I mean, we were doing 400, 300 person events. So you can imagine that was completely stopped. By March, I want to say 15th, I got my first cancellation. That was Google saying that unfortunately, we will not be able to proceed with the event due to, the quarantine and the pandemic. And then it was a ripple effect after that. So essentially, my business had no contracts for the entire year of 2020, but God. So we were able to pivot to provide emergency meals first locally. The first call I got was from State Senator Comrie to provide ready-to-go meals for our seniors in our community right here in Southeast Queens. So, which was great because we were already used to providing food at volume. So that was a blessing to be able to, even within a pandemic, be able to still support the community and still bring in revenue for my business. So that was the first way I pivoted. Second, as a mom, that was like, the most important pivot at all, and transitioning to online learning and just being able to be fluid and flexible. So that's the 2 ways I pivoted in 2020.
So I just want to say, Diana, one, your little boy should be what, like 4 or 5 now?
He's 4. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. I know he's getting big. And then also, I would love to hear more about, what you're doing in Laurelton with the organic food and everything, because I would love to support you. I eat organically. So, I would love to hear more about that. So we'll talk about that on the side, but I was excited to hear that.
Absolutely.
So we're going to now, with that said, Miss Tanya.
Yes. How did I pivot? So, I mean, I agree with Diana totally. My biggest pivots were with my daughter having to go virtual, and then my husband being home working with me, right? So just having to, mark our territory, so to speak, in the house. Like, this is where I'll be taking care of business, putting the quiet sign on the door, we're live, kind of thing. And just doing that more and just really servicing clients more virtually than having in-person meetings. But what I do is marketing and communication strategy. A lot of things I can do virtually. So that wasn't so much of a difficult pivot. It was really the fact of not being able to go and meet with them in person, because some clients just need to touch and feel you. They're better that way. And I was not able to do that, but really assuring them that, we can get through this together. I think it also brought increase to my business, which was a blessing. But I think really the mindset, I do event planning and, like what Diana was saying, all venues were shut down. You had to figure out, how are we going to make this happen? Like you said earlier, we have worked together, Danielle, and, we were able to launch your premier Black Business Owners Forum virtually. And so just that whole learning curve, but it was challenging and exciting. And I think that, knowing where we are now and what we came through, true blessing. And I'm just so grateful.
Thanks, Tanya. And last but not least, Miss Natasha. And wait, Miss Natasha, first of all, so I got to tell y'all, I know she's, Stacy's girl, but she's my girl too, because we sorors. And I'm getting back to the alumni chapter, Natasha. I promise you, COVID stopped, but I'm coming back. And I saw, is it your birthday coming up soon?
Yesterday.
It was yesterday.
Right. All right. I saw, I was like, okay, Natasha's going to be on the show. I'm going to have to say happy birthday. So let's give a happy birthday to Miss Natasha.
Thank you.
With that said, Miss Natasha, how have you pivoted?
So I love this conversation because it's all like entrepreneurs. And so I think you guys are like the most creative people ever. And so how we pivoted, because I was still working for the JFK Redevelopment Program, was figuring out ways to still, similar to what everyone has just mentioned, deliver services to the community, but in a virtual space. And it was interesting because we actually offered way more workshops and programs online than we did when we were in person. And so we were able to continue our certifications. We were able to continue providing different training to individuals looking for jobs, whether it's a soft skill, resume building, interview tips, how to present yourself online. We partnered with LinkedIn for a session. We held sessions with Greater Jamaica Development Corporation. We worked with the Office of Diversity and Inclusion to have sessions on doing business with the Port Authority. So we hosted, over 40 plus, if not more, 50 plus events during COVID. And so that was really interesting to pivot to the digital space, and also still trying to do a lot of the things that we said we wanted to do. So we had started this internship program. How can we have interns in this virtual space when they can't be in person? Most of our work is out in the community, which is difficult when you cannot touch and feel people. And so we were still able to have an intern and for him to be able to work remotely. And so literally almost everything you all said is kind of what we did. How can we take what we did in the physical and put it online and promote it to a wide audience to increase participation and keep it interesting? Because I think people started getting tuned out after a while. I will say that. I think about May, June, when it started getting warmer, people are like, all right, I'm over this. I've been locked in the house for the last couple of months. And so then we had to even pivot again because we had to think about how can we produce entertaining, informative sessions and not just, someone hopping onto another WebEx again to listen to a whole bunch of people speak.
Absolutely. And the pivot is real because it's still continuing. You know, some people say that 2021 is 2020 with a wig on. So there's still some things that are shifting and changing in this world. But when we talk about the pivot, and congratulations to the three of you of being great examples of not getting stuck and not panicking. Because if you panic, you can't pivot. So there had to be a shift and a change. And hey, Valerie, thank you for tuning in. Great to see you, our sister, for participating in the show today. So, in pivoting, sometimes there's some bumps in the road. How did you fail forward? You know, we hear that term a lot, especially for those in business. And this is a show for MWBEs and small businesses. So, unless you're living on Mars, you're going to have some challenges in growing your business. There are going to be some things that you learn the hard way. So, I'm going to start with Diana this time. How did you fail forward? What were you willing to share with our community, or was life just perfect for you, my dear?
Oh, I wish only that's only happening in this afterlife in heaven. But I will say that fail forwarding isn't just something that I've experienced throughout 2020 and because of pivoting. I've never been one to be afraid of failure. Yes. Yes. And just to kind of set the tone, the 4-year-old is up now. So it's going to be real fun now. It's going to be real fun. So I've never been one that's been afraid to fail, or even admit that I failed, because there's just something powerful in realizing, like, look, okay, this didn't work. Let me try it better the next time around. So, but specifically to pivoting, oh my gosh, there were just so many things that I can think of, because like you said, and I love that, Dr. Grant, that you said, you know, you can't pivot if you panic, right? And I think a lot of us were in a state of panic at some point, because you don't know what to do and you're just kind of moving just to stay afloat. So for me, specifically to Jars of Delight, some of my failing forward had to do with simple things from like sourcing, where I was sourcing even my serviceware from, and not looking at margins, right? Not looking at things that at the end of the day, when I'm looking at my balance sheet and my cost analysis, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I spent how much on what now, right? And that's because you're just trying to, you're pivoting. You're just trying to move. And I've had to, learn to slow down. And even in pivoting and making decisions, there's just something powerful in just understanding that, yes, you do have to move, but you do have to move strategically. So that's one of the ways that I failed forward. A lot of it had to do with cost. And specifically, recently, I've been blessed, and Jars of Delight has been blessed to be awarded a contract with New York City, right? As an MWBE. Hey, to all the MWBEs out there, right? So one of the things that I've had to learn was maybe not feeling in that moment, but having failed and not realized it, were certain things like, workers' comp, like who's your workers' comp person, and how much are you paying people, and what are the protocols and the procedures that you need to have in place that you probably didn't have in place. And once you're applying for these grants and these funds and these contracts, they start to ask you questions, and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, so yes, I have that, or I'll get that, right? So those are things that I didn't know that I needed to have to be in a certain place that we needed to be. So those are just a few of the ways that I think I feel forward during this time.
So, Diane, I just want to say, in listening to you share your story with us, it sounds like with your pivot, there's been this building of capacity and expanding. And that's the beauty of it. If there isn't panic, if there isn't fear, if we walk in faith and we continue to walk down our path, then we have an opportunity to grow in the midst of what looks like restriction. Yeah. It's really can be expansion, but it's all about mindset and how you look at things and how you're willing to address what's in front of you. So kudos to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's major, even just to share it, because a lot of times we don't share what happens from the ground up. We only share the shiny when it, when it's finished and you get the contract, but nobody talks about what happens going in. And, that's one of my dear friends and mentors, Linda Clemens, who talked about that pivot versus panic. And then the other part that she added was position, right? Because once you can now pivot, then you position yourself for what's next, to what Danielle just said. Looks like you build capacity. Looks like you learn some lessons. Looks
Yeah.
like you're never going back where you came from, because
Nope.
now you're moving forward to a whole
Yeah.
new direction. So shout out to we can't see your name that's commenting now, that's saying that's good, and thank you for scribing that. Pivot, analyze, slow down, structure, and implement. That's a good one. We want to give you credit. So just type your name in so we can shout you out properly. But thank you, Diana, for that. And I know that your little one is up. You're a working mom. You're a mom in business. So we get it. No judgment here. Tanya and I know how that feels when you're getting stuff done. So Tanya, over to you. How did you fail forward as you were pivoting? And like you said, you had to make so many changes in this COVID climate. And hey, Minister Boyd, thank you for letting us know it was you. All right, Tanya, over to you.
Tanya, you muted.
I'm unmuting now.
Okay.
So that's actually a dance move I was studying yesterday. And it says pivot, pause, pivot, right? That's how you do how you pivot, stop, pivot. And so that's exactly what I feel happened. I mean, failing forward. So like Diana said, love failing. Failing to me means something greater is on the other side. I'm getting ready, because how do we share our successes without sharing our failures, right? And one thing I did was I started a company within COVID-19. I started a company called Girls Who Pray. I brought a brand. I brought it under Skyrocket. It just had been on my heart. I actually started it in 19 and didn't do anything with it. So in last year, I was like, okay, I'm home. Let me do this, to help. This will help keep me busy, give me another, because I really felt that it was a time we needed to be praying, right? And so it was Girls Who Pray, started it, didn't put any money, as far as advertising or marketing. I just wanted it to be organic. And then let it sit. As things started to pick up, I let it sit. And in my head, I'm like, wow, this isn't good. Like, I have to get it going again. So now I'm trying to get back on it. But that was one instance where I felt I failed forward, because it showed me that if it's not going to move unless I move it, right? Even though it's another project that I brought on, I have this tendency to want to help, everyone, right? So I got another client that I took on. I shouldn't have taken the client on, but I wanted to help, but they weren't ready yet. They weren't ready for to put the investment, the time. I said, are you going to do all the content? They said yes. They didn't know. I didn't find out. So on the other side, they didn't even know what I meant by content, although they had a representative on the call who said they did know what content was. And it ended up being a relationship, first ever relationship I had, where it had to dissolve. It was not working out. And that beat me up so bad. But then I got excited, because I realized this is the first time that I've experienced failure like this, because I couldn't get to them to really walk them through it. So they're telling me on one side, all communication, of course, is on the phone, email. They're saying, we know what we're doing. We're going back and forth. My team is like, this is more than enough. We're way out of scope of our agreement. And so that I failed through that, but it taught me that, number one, I have to change some clauses in my agreements for situations like that to cover myself and my company and my team. Number two, I can't help everybody. They were referred from my CPA. So I'm like, okay, let me help you. But they weren't ready. They were at more of a beginner stage. I can help with startups, but they were at a different level, and still trying to be professional and caring for them and wanting the best for them, but realizing my company isn't the best for your situation. So that was hard for me to digest, but it helped me grow. And now I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I learned through the process. So I hope that helps.
That it more than helped, because I think there's so many things that you said that I'm sure all of the business owners listening can take away. But the part where you saw the gap, you saw the hole in the contract, like, okay, I'm not going to be exposed like this again. So it happened now with this, so it didn't happen with something bigger.
Right, exactly. That's what I said.
So it was just the training ground as you're growing. Those are the parts of the growing pains for any business, learning some of those lessons. And they give you an ouch right? And you're
Yes.
in your feelings for a second, and
Yes.
then you pick up and you move forward. So thank you for sharing that. And Natasha, what about you in pivoting and working? Oh, Danielle wanted to ask another question, and I'm coming over
No,
to you.
no. I just wanted to make a statement because I think you raised something that was really important, Stacy. But I think now more than ever, what I also heard, and I just want to share this, is about setting boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's really important because we are in this space now where we are like, people are like, is that? And it's like, how do you, that intentionality of what Diana spoke about, also being strategic, how do you determine what is worthy of your time? And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but I mean that in the sense of what is going to provide value for you and that person. And we have to be very stingy now with our time, what we are putting our efforts in. What are we, as they say, tilling the ground and sowing. All of that is really important. And so I know for me, speaking about pivot, in that intentionality, in that being strategic, it's about that as well, of setting boundaries and just being clear on what I want to participate and how I want to participate in something. So
Absolutely. Now that's a great point. And over to you, Natasha, just building on that and how you might have failed forward in this time of pivot.
Yeah, I think I actually have a great segue to what Danielle said, which is my time. I feel like throughout COVID, I was on autopilot. Like I didn't feel anything. Like it was kind of strange. And so because I was on autopilot, trying to continue to do all of the things and plus more, because then you kind of have this illusion that you have all this time when you really don't. You just are like blending and merging your life and your home time with work time. And I am a person, and I'm sure all of you all can understand, because I feel like successful women do 1,000,001 things, and we're a jack of all trades and then master of them as well. And so I'm like in school getting my PhD, I'm working, I'm trying to run for office. During COVID, I created this initiative called the Nationhood to help, Black people grapple with everything that was happening. I started the New York City Black Women's Political Club, and I wanted to continue stuff there. I mean, it was a lot. Then I picked up some side projects. I started an LLC. So then I was working on side projects. And so there was a breaking point where I was like, whoa, like I am actually not productive at all of these things. So in my head, I think I'm being productive. But then when I actually stopped, I'm like, wow, I haven't read for school for the last month. Wow, I missed a couple of meetings. Wow, I'm not able to like produce on this project how I want to produce on this project because I simply don't have the time. And so that was my feeling. And that was another lesson for me, because I never, I always get things done, right? Like that's like my running joke. Like, give me a task, I'm gonna get it done. Doesn't matter, I'm gonna figure it out. And so like for me to not get things done was like a shocker to me. And I had to really stop and evaluate my life. And exactly what you said, Danielle, figure out what is the priority, right? Like I'm doing all of these things in the midst of saying I want to run for office. And the main thing that actually probably needs my time right now, because it's only a short period of time that you can run for office, is actually running for office. So why am I doing all of these other things? And I actually have done nothing in the bucket of running for office. I am not reading for school. I'm missing work meetings for my job. So if my boss is listening, I missed some work meetings for my job. It's just like I'm doing all these things, and it's like it didn't make sense. And so I had to really evaluate what is the priority. My job is the priority, right? Like this is the thing that's I've been employed, thankfully. And so I need to focus on remaining employed. Running for office is very important to me. How can I shift things around so that I can properly do what I need to do to run for office? And so, yes, timing and actually failing and not being productive and getting things done and having to just leave it undone. that's the thing too. Like I don't like leaving things undone, but I had to be comfortable leaving a few things undone because I simply did not have the time. And again, to your point, Danielle, realized that I needed to prioritize and be stingy about the things that I was dedicating my time to.
Amen, Natasha. And you know what I find? For us being boss ladies and having type A personalities, when we feel like things are undone, that causes us to feel like we are failing, right? So as we talked about failing forward, that is a beautiful lesson for you to learn and know that, you are still a boss lady as you manage through that.
Can I also add just real quick? I just want to share too that with that client I was sharing about that, we lost half of the contract, the money, right? When we canceled, it was an amicable decision. They were frustrated. They kept saying they loved the work. Then they brought in more team, more opinions. And we left it at that. We did not charge them. I wanted it to be, I cared about my company's branding. I cared about the image. We wanted them to feel good. So that was really hard because sometimes we get caught up with the dollars, even though I felt that they owed us more, but I was good with going higher. That how Michelle Obama says, when they go low, you go high. We went higher and we went out with our best foot forward. And that felt good. And that was a great growing pain for me as well.
Oh, I know that pain, Tanya. You better than me. You left half. I gave a refund and blessed and released, and that hurt to give back the money. But I said, I want nothing like I want a clean slate, and I still did the job. So I ended up
that's right.
Free.
You did it.
A full refund, so they could never even. Child, that was a little. Yes. I had a flashback, honey. I'm sorry.
Well, look. But in the spirit of transparency, I want to say that I am one of Tanya's clients, and I know for sure Tanya gives me a lot more than I give her. So I just want to tell her in the spirit of powerful woman how much I tell you. I appreciate her and I love her. And, she's definitely on multiple levels. She blesses me. But yeah, even on a work level, which is how we met, she blesses me. So thank you, Tanya.
And Stacey, I feel you on that. For you to have done that, Stacey, was awesome. I mean, for you to give, they had already paid a deposit. I always get the deposit, but the balance, I just said 0, and I wish you the best. And so that's all. We can go out high, right? Go out high.
Yeah. And that hurt. I was like, I had to do like the Jamaican. Let me let the Jamaican me come out. I had to tie my belly on that one. All right. Right. I do want to say that, Tanya, kudos to you because you've gotten my sister's whole digital life in order. So I need to put the applause.
Look, ladies. Look, I'm gonna say, call it what it is. Call it what it is. Look, I know. And guess what? I'm still being dragged, kicking and screaming. Right? I'm like, do I have to show my face on something? She's like, yes. I'm like, oh. So.
But that's the pivot and growing as Danielle gets ready to queue up our next question. When you have the right people around you, you have no other choice but to grow. Right. And this is something that I train on in my business. If you keep thinking that you have to be the smartest one in your group, like Dr. Dennis Kimbrough says, and you think you're the bomb.com, that's not going to get you far. Because if you're the smartest person in your group, you need a new group. Right. Because how are you going to grow? How are you going to expand? So the people that you're around really dictate and influence how far you'll grow because they're going to challenge you to come up higher. So I just had to put that in. And hey, Lynette, thank you for tuning in. Great to see you. All right, Danielle, back over to you.
So I want to ask, and I'll start with Natasha this time. Natasha, how have you used collaboration as a strategy?
Absolutely. Every single thing that I do, I try to collaborate, and I live by that mantra. I always say I am not the smartest person, but what I am smart at is finding the smartest people. So I'm always willing to gather in the experts. And so, with the events that we did with the Port Authority, we partnered with people who were experts in different things. So literally most of our events were partnerships. So whether it was partnering with LinkedIn, partnering with CAO, partnering with other departments within the Port Authority, partnering with the terminal developers, partnering with Elmcor, partnering with the Queen's Library. I mean, like the list can go, on and on and on in terms of all of the different groups and organizations that we partner with to create some of the workshops. The Nationhood initiative that I started, literally three of my friends reached out to me about the same similar thing. And so I was like, hey, I have the perfect thing for you. Let's all get together and figure it out, right? And so that literally birthed the Nationhood from me working with friends who reached out to me wanting to do something and saying, well, that sounds like this person's idea and your idea, so I just want to bring everyone together. And same thing with the New York City Black Women's Political Club. Was a partnership. I, again, don't believe that I can do all things by myself. And I am the first one to say I do not know everything, but I have the foresight and the intuition to find the people that know the things so that we can be productive and get it done. The Juneteenth protest march is another thing. And, wrangling people, especially Dr. Stacey N.C. Grant here, to help out and utilize their resources and their expertise to get things done.
Thanks, Natasha. And I'm going to go over to Diana.
Yeah. So how have I collaborated? So this was probably one of the most one of the best experience I've had in terms of collaboration and community building. And that was the launch of the Laurelton Farmers Market. And it was already in plan. I was planning maybe a year prior to 2020 when I realized that space was just so perfect to have a farmer's market and no one was using it. And then I reached out to the LIRR and just, I tend to move by faith all the time. And I tend to move by faith all the time. And so this was no different. I didn't know who to go to. So I just made a phone call to the LIRR and I was like, hey, you have a great space. Can I use it for farmers market? Anyway, long story short, got connected to the right department and it was a yes, and we got the permit. And regarding collaboration, what I wanted it to be a real collaboration, right? I didn't want it to be something that people just showed up to. So maybe 4 months prior to launching the farmers market, we had a weekly open Zoom meeting for the community. So we're talking about local residents, we're talking about civics, elected officials, community leaders. You can just come onto the Zoom and just give us what your vision of a farmers market would look like in our community. And I can tell you that level of collaboration was so special because before the market even physically existed, it was already figuratively existing. It was virtually existing. So when you got to the market, you already felt like a family. And I don't know if anyone, aside from Dr. Grant, if you've been to the market, it's such a vibe. It's such an organic collaboration of business owners and vendors and community organizations. I mean, everybody is there. It's not just selling produce or products. I mean, the civics set up, nonprofit organizations set up tents. And for me, it was just like an opportunity to, provide a safe space during what is considered one of the worst times in our existence. So that was how we collaborate. As I'm going to wrap up because he's about to live.
Leave my little boyfriend alone. He was his camera time, honey. He's like, wait, we on camera this morning? Nobody gave me the memo. He needed to let everybody know he was here.
He's literally walking around praising the Lord in the house. And I don't want to stop him because that's a real thing that he does. And I don't want to discourage that. But I'm like, all right, we're going to praise the Lord. That's what we're going to do.
I love it.
And we're going to say amen to that, right?
Amen.
We're not going to complain. I do want to just underscore before Danielle, we move over to Tanya about the farmers market being a vibe. I mean, to see healthy produce in our community, the conversation about it, to see the presentations that happen, right there in the middle of the parking lot for the LIRR, talking about health and wellness with Elizabeth Madison, having, voter registration information, talking, and even clothes. I picked up a little something, well, retail therapy always works for me, but
Yeah,
there's
and they're
still
all handmade. Yeah, and they're handmade, they're local vendors, and it was not only an opportunity, as I said, to provide healthy, fresh produce, but it was an opportunity to be our own economic stimulus in our community. And one of the best experiences on the last day of the market, I literally had to cry and said, Diana, you don't realize, but this is how I've been paying my rent throughout the pandemic is vending at this market. So
Wow.
like you said, amazing collaborations with amazing people like Elizabeth Madison, who's our director of nutrition and health and wellness, and just being able to have a candidacy forum where all the candidates of the 31st district came out and just in an open space all together. We were all there collaborating, right? You're all running your own race, but let the community come out and meet you. So it was such a blessing. And I am happy to announce that we do have our second and third location for farmers markets this year. So St. Albans is the next one coming in June, and we're hoping to have the same vibe. So in a week or so, we'll open up another weekly Zoom where the local members of St. Albans and the civics and the different organizations and community leaders can come out and just talk about the vision for the St. Albans Farmers Market. And I feel like that's true collaboration, right? One person has to have the vision, or maybe two people have the vision, but it takes a collective effort and a true collaboration to make it sustainable.
And the one thing I'm hearing, Diana, you say it over and over again, but it warms my heart, is in the collaboration, community has been built. Not just literal community being part, but like a community of stakeholders and relationships are being built and flourishing. So kudos to you in that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And Tanya?
Collaboration, I want to talk about it from the perspective of the North Carolina A&T State University, New Jersey alumni chapter. So I'm president of our alumni chapter, and, COVID really has put a hit on a lot of college fairs, HBCU college fairs specifically. And so what we did to make that happen in the realm of our university guidelines was that the Philadelphia chapter, Northern Delaware chapter, New York City chapter, and Queens chapter joined the New Jersey chapter, and we did a virtual Aggies Connect online. And so we were able to bring everyone from the different areas on with their future students, with their parents, and share information with our alumni relations from the university, as well as the student association on. So that was a great collaborative effort to really continue to push A&T, to push education, to just share our experiences and answer any questions. And so we were very happy with the results of that. So we've been really trying to decide how to collaborate. I'm always about collaborating. I'm always also more, what I consider important is connecting people to collaborate, right? So if I know someone does this and someone does that, oh, you two need to meet and work together. There's maybe, because I believe that God's vision is so much greater than our own, right? Than we can individually do. So collectively, we can do so much. And I believe that collaboration should be a household business term. It's I know that it's a big word now. We're talking about collaborate, but to me, it should be interwoven. It should be a part of the foundation, the environment. And I'm always about it and trying to figure out how, your vision can come with my vision and this person's vision, and let's mesh the two and make have a great world, right? And do good. So that's my story on collaboration.
Thanks, Tanya. And with that said, I'm going to pivot back over to my co-host, Dr. Stacey N.C. Grant.
I am loving this conversation. Yes, Regina said collaboration does work. I mean, there's an African proverb that says you can go far alone, but further together, right? When you work together, when you understand that iron sharpens iron, when you're not so caught up in your own ego that you think you're the only one that can do this and that, and you can just bring and pool brilliance. That's what I love to do. You know,
Right.
my relationship capital, honey, is priceless. It's in the trillions of billions because of all the great people that I know, just like everyone on the show here today. And we're having so much fun. Time is going, but we do want to have a couple of rounds of what we call rapid fire with 2 questions as we close out today, because we could truly be in this conversation all day. This is our celebration of the power of women. We're closing out Women's History Month with this special episode for Queen Strategy Partners, because that's who we are. We're 3 Black women who came together with our individual enterprises and knew that we'd be stronger together as an entity, going out and doing and serving this particular community. We know our MWBE space is one that needs more volume, means more participation, and that our small businesses have to be successful. We see what we're living in. There's not an option about being successful. We have to be, because we're the ones that employ other people. We're the ones that create opportunity. So our show is a prime example about collaboration. So as we're closing out, I'm going to do the first rapid question, and then Danielle will give you the second one. So in 1 sentence or less, tell us what the ultimate definition of a boss lady is. And maybe we'll give you 2 sentences because we do have about 15 minutes, but we want to get into this because it's different for everyone. And we would love to hear your insight on what the ultimate definition of a boss lady is. So this time we'll start with drum roll, Tanya.
Definition of a boss lady. She is a woman who believes that she can. She's an overcomer, a sustainer, and a server.
I love that. Wait, we need some snaps. That was a vibe right there. Yes. Love it, Tanya. All right, Natasha, over to you. What's the ultimate definition of a boss lady?
A woman who gets things done with or without fear.
I like that. Ooh,
Check you out, Miss Natasha. Getting to the point.
I'm telling you, Bam, we're hitting it. All right, Diana, what is the ultimate definition of a boss lady?
I would say a woman that is real. That's it. Just a woman that is real. And in that regard, in any circumstance, in any position, in any place that she is, in any space that she occupies, she's going to show up as her authentic self. So that's my definition.
I'm liking this woman vibe today. You know, I'm trying to be with the young kids. Natasha's laughing at me. That's why I keep all my babies around.
Right, your focus group. Your focus group.
Yeah, they're my focus. You see,
they're the best.
Because my children, they're like, Ma, who's teaching you that? Like, stop. So Danielle, over to you with our next rapid fire question as we're celebrating the power of women today.
So, Natasha, what would you tell your 16-year-old self?
This is a super deep question because I just did some like inner childhood work. And so in going back to my childhood, I think one of the things that I would tell my younger self is that you're loved, you got this, you're protected, and you're going to do such amazing things in the world. And just be confident in who you are as a person.
Thank you. And Diana?
If I'm going to be, again, just real, I'm going to say stick with God.
You say no problem, praise the Lord.
I think that's what I would tell myself. I think at 16, at that time, I was going through,
you're 16, no, you.
When you're going into... Yeah. Stick with God in every capacity. That's what I'm going to stay with. Stick with God. I think at that time, you know, when you grow up in church, you're a church child. You think the world is so shiny and pretty and everything, and you want. But I will tell myself, stay focused and stick with God, Diana.
And you know what, Diana? What I'll say to that is, I still got to tell my self right now, stick with God. Stick with God. So I hear you. That's a lesson I continue to have to learn, yes, you know, because it's the flesh versus the spirit. So you know it, but you gotta.
Yeah. It's a daily surrender. A daily surrender.
Daily walk. So yes. So just in a level of humility, I'm just sharing,
I love it.
Tanya?
I would tell my 16-year-old self to love yourself the most and the best. And the second thing is you can't play volleyball forever. So you got to start working out and exercise.
I love that one, Tanya. Girl, I'm a witness to that. I wanted other people to work out and the weight fall off of me.
Because you kind of take things for granted back then, when you're 16. So.
Yeah. The Coca-Cola bottle didn't last forever. We had to do something.
Look, we're going to have to start coining Tanya's phrases because, Tanya, you got folks saying rest well, rise ready, right? So
Exactly.
that's another thing we could tell our 16-year-old self as we tell ourselves now, rest well, rise ready.
That's true because we didn't sleep.
Absolutely. And Danielle, what would you tell your 16-year-old self? We'll participate in this one too.
I think I would tell my 16-year-old self, you are a badass chick and you have everything you need to be all that you are. All you got to do is live it.
I love it.
And trust in God, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's giving you everything you need. Just be it. Be all that he has you to be.
I love it. That Regina said she would tell herself that God has me and I'm loved and have a purpose and a plan. I love it. Yes, love yourself and the workout. And stop laughing at me, Regina. The Coca-Cola bottle doesn't last forever. So for me, I would tell my 16-year-old self, recognize who celebrates you and who tolerates you. That's what I would tell my 16-year-old self. Recognize who celebrates you and who tolerates you. Because I think for young girls, we spend so much time validating ourselves through the eyes of our peer influence and not always listening to what the wisdom of our parents or our aunties are telling us. And just recognize who celebrates you and who tolerates you. If you can do that, you can probably sift through some of those relationships early in life that won't serve you and continue to nurture the ones that will help grow you. So that's what I would tell. And that's what I'm telling my nieces and all my babies so they understand. So as we wrap up, last thing for today, we want a power word for 2021. What's your power word? So we're going to let you think on that for a minute. I'm going to put on some Jeopardy music. Oh, Lord. That's been part of my pivot, being a producer in 2020. So power word. What's your power word for 2021? Who did we start with before? Diana, we'll start with you. Power word for 2021.
It's
I
productive.
don't see candy. I'm proud of this.
Productive is my power word. Because I do so much. People have the tendency to say, "Oh, you're doing so much. I know you must be so busy."
You're
And what I've been saying is, no, I'm not busy. I'm productive. So that's my power word this year.
And there's a difference.
Absolutely.
And know the difference.
And that is definitely, and it's intentional when people say, "Oh, you're so busy," and you're usually like, "Yeah, I got a lot going on," but I started to train my mind to say, "You're not busy, Diana. You're being productive. You're accomplishing things." So that's my power word, productive.
I love it. I love it. Over to you, Natasha.
Strength. That's my power word. I think so much of my journey has been about building strength and continuing to build strength, external strength, internal strength to allow me to get things done. I think you need to have a level of strength.
I love it. I love it. Productive strength. And Tanya, over to you.
This is a hard one. But let me just say jump. I think that we have to move. A lot of us are on the edge. I know there are things that I've been, kind of hesitant, but we just have to jump and trust God and just have that faith to do it, because there's so many people that do it and succeed. How will we ever know if we, unless we jump? So.
I love it. So we have productive, we have strength, we have jump. Regina saying consistent. Lynette is saying productive. Danielle, what's your power word?
Transformation.
Transformation. I love it. And I guess y'all can guess what my power word is. It always is action. So let's get it, baby. 2021. Let's get the action. We thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to turn it over to my co-host to close us out today. This has been so much fun celebrating the power of women. We hope you heard something that confirms what you already knew on the inside. And it's time to move with these power words. Be productive, have the strength, jump. And Danielle, girl, give it to them one more time.
Transformation.
Transformation. If you get there, baby, with a little bit of action. All right, Danielle, take it away.
So I just hope that you all enjoyed this session as much as we have. I mean, these boss ladies that we have with us today may be right here on the screen, or our guests who are like hanging out with us today. We just want to say we're just mirror images of one another. And that's why it's so important who you have in your inner circle, because they're just reflecting back to you your brilliance. They're supposed to be there to have you rise higher, take you to another level, to iron sharpens iron, as Miss Stacy said. So we just wanted to, again, celebrate all of us. This is not just about the ladies on the screen, but it's all of us. And so I say to you all, continue to be that badass chick. I will say, rest well, rise ready, continue to pivot forward, and be transformed by the renewing of your mind, your heart, and what you do. And with that, I say, join us in 2 weeks, because we'll be here. So we hope you're coming back. And in the meantime, continue to make it happen. So see you soon.
Bye. Thank you for having us. Thank you.
More. Hey, Kevin Miller. Hey, Shivda, we appreciate all of you here. Bye-bye, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey.